Some of us left weeping, and some of us left singing. One of us left with her hand held over her mouth and hysterically laughing. A few of us left drunk. Others of us left quietly with our heads bowed, embarrassed and ashamed. There was an old man from Gilroy who left on a stretcher. There was another old man, Natsuko's husband, a retired barber in Florin, who left on crutches with an American Legion cap pulled down low over his head. "Nobody win war. Everybody lose," he said. Most of us left speaking only English so as not to anger the crowds that had gathered to watch us go. Many of us had lost everything and left saying nothing at all. All of us left wearing white numbered identification tags tied to our collars and lapels. There was a newborn baby from San Leandro who left sleepily, with her eyes half closed, in a swaying wicker basket. Her mother, Shizuma's eldest daughter, Naomi, left anxiously but stylishly in a gray wool skirt and black alligator pumps. "Do you think they'll have milk there?" she kept asking. There was a boy in short pants from Oxnard who left wondering whether or not they'd have swings. Some of us left wearing our very best clothes. Other of us left wearing the only clothes we had. One woman left in a fox furs. "The lettuce king's wife," people whispered. One man left barefoot but freshly shaven, with all of his belongings neatly wrapped up in a square of white cloth. A Buddhist rosary, a clean shirt, a lucky pair of dice, a new pair of socks, to be worn in better times. One man from Santa Barbara left carrying a brown leather suitcase covered with faded stickers that said Paris and London and Hotel Metropole, Beirut. His wife left 3 steps behind him, carrying a wooden washboard and a book of etiquette she had checked out from the library by Emily Post. "It's not due until next week," she said. There were families from Oakland who left carrying sturdy canvas sea bags they had bought the day before at Montgomery Ward. There were families from Fresno who left carrying bulging cardboard boxes. The Tanakos of Gardenia left without paying their rent. The Tanakos of Delano without paying their taxes. The Kobayashis of Biola left after bleaching the top of their stove and washing the floors of their restaurant with buckets of scalding hot water. The Suzukis of Lompoc left little piles of salt outside their doorway to purify their house. The Nishimotos of San Carlos left out bowls of fresh orchids from their nursery on the kitchen table for whoever was moving in next. The Igarashis of Preston packed up until the last moment and left their place a mess. Most of us left in a hurry. Many of us left in despair. A few of us left in disgust and had no desire to ever come back. One of us left Roberts Island in the Delta, clutching a copy of the Bible and humming Sakura Sakura. One of us came from the big city and left wearing her first pair of pants. They say it's no place for dresses. One of us left after having her hair done at the Talk of the Town beauty salon for the first time in her life. It's something I've always wanted to do. One of us left a rice ranch in Willows carrying a tiny Buddhist shrine in her pocket and telling everyone that things would turn out all right in the end. "The gods will look after us," she said. Her husband left in muddy field clothes with their entire life savings stuffed into the toe of his boot. 50 cents, he said with a wink and a smile. Some of us left without our husbands who had been arrested during the first weeks of the war. Some of us left without our children whom we had sent away years before. I asked my parents to take care of my 2 oldest so I could work full-time on the farm. One man left East First Street in Los Angeles with a white wooden box filled with his wife's ashes hanging from a silk sash around his neck. He talks to her all day long. One man left downtown Hayward with a tin of chocolates given to him by the Chinese couple who had taken over the lease on his store. One man left a great branch in Danuba carrying a grudge against his neighbor, Al Petrosian, who had never paid him what he owed for his plow. You can never trust the Armenians. One man left Sacramento, shaking and empty-handed and shouting out, "It's all yours." Asayo, our prettiest, left the new ranch in Redwood carrying the same rattan suitcase she had brought over with her 23 years ago on the boat. It still looks brand new. Yasuko left her apartment in Long Beach with a letter from a man who was not her husband, neatly folded inside her compact at the bottom of her purse. Masayo left after saying goodbye to her youngest son, Masamichi, at the hospital in San Bruno, where he would be dead of the mumps by the end of the week. Hanako left fearful and coughing, but all she had was a cold. Matsuko left with a headache. Toshiko left with a fever. Shiki left in a trance. Mitsuyo left nauseous and unexpectedly pregnant for the first time in her life at the age of 48. Nobuye left wondering whether or not she had unplugged her iron, which she had used that morning to touch up the pleats of her blouse. "I've got to go back," she said to her husband, who stared straight ahead and did not reply. Tora left with a venereal disease she had contracted on her last night at the Welcome Hotel. Sachiko left practicing her ABCs as though it were just another ordinary day. Futaye, who had the best vocabulary of us all, left speechless. Atsuko left heartbroken after saying farewell to all the trees in her orchard. I planted them as saplings. Miyoshi left pining for her big horse. Ryu, Setsuo, left looking for her neighbors, Bob and Florence Eldridge, who had promised to come say goodbye. Sugino left with a clear conscience after shouting a long-held and ugly secret down into a well. I filled the baby's mouth with ashes, and it died. Kiyono left the farm on White Road, convinced she was being punished for a sin she had committed in a previous life. I must have stepped on a spider. Setsuko left her house in Gridley after killing all the chickens in her backyard. Chie left Glendale, still grieving for her oldest daughter, Misuzu, who had thrown herself in front of a trolley car 5 years before. Suteko, who had no children of her own, left feeling as though life had somehow passed her by. Shizue left Camp Number 8 on Webb Island chanting a sutra that had come back to her after 34 years. My father used to recite it every morning at the altar. Katsuno left her husband's laundry in San Diego mumbling, "Somebody wake me up, please." Fumiko left a boarding house in Cortland, apologizing for any trouble she might have caused. Her husband left telling her to pick up the pace and please keep her mouth shut. Misuyo left graciously and with ill will toward none. Chiyoko, who had always insisted that we call her Charlotte, left insisting that we call her Chiyoko. I've changed my mind one last time. Io left with an alarm clock ringing from somewhere deep inside her suitcase, but did not stop to turn it off. Kimiko left her purse behind on the kitchen table, but would not remember until it was too late. Haruku left a tiny laughing brass Buddha up high in a corner of an attic, where he is still laughing to this day. Takako left a bag of rice beneath the floorboards in her kitchen, so her family would have something to eat when they returned. Misayo left out a pair of wooden sandals on her front porch so it would look like someone was still home. Roku left her mother's silver mirror with her neighbor, Louise Hastings, who had promised to keep it for her until she came back. I will help you in any way I can. Matsuyo left wearing a pearl necklace given to her by her mistress, Mrs. Bunting, whose house in Wilmington she had kept spotless for 21 years. Half my life. Sumiko left with an envelope filled with cash given to her by her second husband, Mr. Howell of Montecito, who she recently informed that he would not be accompanying her on the trip. She gave him back his ring. Chiyuno left Kolma thinking of her younger brother, Jiro, who had been sent to the leper colony on the island of Oshima in the summer of 1909. We had never spoke of him again. Ayumi left Edenville, wondering whether or not she remembered to pack her lucky red dress. I don't feel like myself without it. Nagako left El Cerrito filled with regret for all the things she had not done. I wanted to visit my home village one last time and burn incense at my father's grave. Her daughter Evelyn left telling her, "Hurry, hurry, Mama, we're late." There was a woman of uncommon beauty, whom none of us had ever seen, who left blinking and confused. Her husband, people said, had kept her locked up in his basement so no other man could lay eyes on her face. There was a man from San Mateo who left carrying a set of golf clubs and a case of old par scotch. I hear he used to be Charlie Chaplin's personal valet. There was a man of the cloth, Reverend Shibata of the First Baptist Church, who left urging everyone to forgive and forget. There was a man in a shiny brown suit, Fry Cook Kanda of Yabu Noodle, who left urging Reverend Shibata to give it a rest. There was a national fly casting champion from Pismo Beach who left carrying all his favorite bamboo fishing pole and a book of poems by Robert Frost. It's all I really need. There was a group of champion bridge players from Monterey who left grinning and flush with cash. There was a family of sharecroppers from Pajaro who left wondering whether or not they would ever see their valley again. There were aging, sunburned bachelors who left from everywhere and nowhere at all at once. They'd been following the crops for years. There was a gardener from Santa Maria who left with a rodent rod cutting from his master's front yard and a pocket filled with seeds. There was a grocer from Oceanside who left with a worthless check written out to him by a truck driver who had offered to buy all the fixtures in his store. There was a pharmacist from Stockton who left after making payments on his life insurance policy for the next 2.5 years. There was a chicken sexer from Petaluma who left convinced we would all be back in 3 months. There was a well-dressed older woman from Burbank who left proudly, regally, with her head held up high in the air. Viscount Oda's daughter, someone said. Bellboy Godo's wife, said someone else. There was a man who had just been released from San Quentin who left already owing money to half the shopkeepers in town. Time to move on, he said. There were college girls in black garbadine slacks, our older daughters, who left wearing American flag pins on their sweaters and Phi Beta Kappa keys dangling from gold chains around their necks. There were handsome young men in just pressed chinos, our older sons, who left shouting the Berkeley fight song and talking about next year's big game. There was a newlywed couple in matching ski caps who left arm in arm and seemed to take no notice of anyone else. There was an elderly couple from Manteca who left, having the same argument they'd been having since the day they first met. If you say that one more time. There was an old man in a Salvation Army uniform from Alameda who left shouting, "God is love, God is love." There was a man from Yuba City who left with his half-Irish daughter, Eleanor, who had been delivered to him that morning by a woman he had deserted long ago. He didn't even know of her existence until last week. There was a tenant farmer from Woodland who left whistling Dixie after plowing under the last of his crops. There was a widow from Covina who left after giving power of attorney to a kind doctor who had offered to rent her house. I think I just made a mistake. There was a young woman from San Jose who left carrying a bouquet of roses sent to her by an anonymous suitor from the neighborhood who had always admired her from afar. There were children from Salinas who left carrying bouquets of grass they had pulled up that morning from their front yards. There were children from San Benito and Napa who left wearing multiple layers of clothing in order to take as much as they could. There was a girl from a remote almond ranch in Oakdale who left shyly, fearfully, with her head pressed into her mother's skirt, for she had never seen so many people in her life. There were 3 young boys from the orphanage in San Francisco who left looking forward to taking their first ride on a train. There was an 8-year-old boy from Placerville who left a small duffel bag packed for him by his who left carrying a small duffel bag packed for him by his foster mother, Mrs. Lerman, who had told him he'd be back by the end of the week. "Now you go and have yourself a good time," she'd said. There was a boy from Lemon Cove who left clinging to his older sister's back. "It's the only way I could get him out of the house." There was a girl from Kernville who left carrying a small cardboard suitcase filled with candy and toys. There was a girl from Heber who left bouncing a red rubber ball. There were 5 sisters from Selma, the Matsumoto girls, who left fighting over their father, as always, and already one of them had a black eye. There were twin boys from Livingston who left wearing matching white slings on their right arms, even though they were perfectly fine. "They've been wearing those for days," their mother said. There were 6 brothers from a strawberry ranch in Dominguez who left wearing cowboy boots so they wouldn't get bitten by snakes. "Rough train ahead," one said. There were children who left thinking they were going camping. There were children who left thinking they were going hiking or to the circus or swimming for a day at the beach. There was a boy on roller skates who did not care where it was he was going as long as there were paved streets. There were children who left 1 month short of their high school graduation. "I was going to go to Stanford."